Our state has some incredible problems. My name is Lynn Hinderrocker. I'm here to talk about that with you and talk about the trends that have shaped this state and dragged us in one direction or another. We're not really we're not realizing the dream we had way back in the early 2000s or even around 2008 or 9 or 10. My name is Lynn Hinderrocker. Welcome to WowBiz Nebraska. We're going to get it on right now. You have two barriers at this point in the world, the way the internet is unfolding and the way the sales process in particular is evolving. Those two barriers, those two enemies, shall we say, are time and trust. Those two T words are the key issue. Every morning we'd get out of bed and say, I'm going to go out there and pitch today. I'm going to get some clients. Time and trust are the barriers. And Bruce Arendt and I are going to be talking about that later on today.
Very
Bruce,
good.
Good to see you, sir.
Good to be here.
But first we're going to talk just a little bit about the most pressing business problem today. If you talk to a medium-sized company or a larger firm, they are struggling right now with how to handle the whole remote employee work concept, you know. Some people say, hey, this is the future of work. This is where it's going. And really the employee is, quote, in charge of the business sector.
And you know, for some businesses that works out fine. But there's a lot of them, it's not working this well, you know. I mean, at this point. I mean, because the businesses are trying to kind of get back into the stream of things, and nobody's showing up for work.
Yeah. So let's do a little role playing, all right?
Okay.
Let's say, for instance, I'm a frustrated business owner.
Okay.
And let's say I have 100 employees out there on the floor, 100 empty chairs, whatever you want to call it. You know,
right.
But a medium-sized operation. And I just don't know what to do because they're getting calls from HR and I won't be in today, but I'll see you on Zoom if you need me, that kind of thing. Right? And so you're a consultant, you're an HR consultant and a cultural icon. And so I bring you in and I say, Bruce, I don't know what I'm going to do here. I don't know if this is bad or good, but do you have any good suggestions? How do I handle this situation? Everybody's got a different opinion about whether they're supposed to be working in this physical space or not.
I think I would look at you with a blank stare because I don't know the answer to that. I really don't know.
Yeah.
It's a real conundrum for people because if they're getting the work done,
yes,
I guess that's one argument.
Yeah.
But a lot of times you have to have face-to-face in a business setting.
Okay, let's switch roles.
Okay.
Now you be the client. All right, go ahead and start kind of get into the thing, and I'll be the consultant.
Lynn, I've got 75 employees, and only 5 of them are actually in my office right now. 70 of them are at home. They just don't want to come in. They're claiming that they don't feel safe, or they just are more comfortable working at home, and they're getting their work done, they say.
Yeah.
So what do I tell them?
Well, I got a couple questions I'll ask you.
Okay.
All right. First of all, how easily replaced or replaceable are the employees that don't want to come in? Well, I mean, that's the first thing. How difficult? I want to share this with you, Mr. Client. Right now, 33% of all workers are planning on leaving. Give that some thought.
Yeah.
That could work against you. That could be a horrible thing. Could make your uncomfortable phase here even more uncomfortable. Or it might be a good thing. So you got to think about that.
Is that regardless of the whole COVID thing?
I'm telling you right now, that is a statistic that just came out, was published in Wall Street Journal.
Interesting.
33% of whether they're happy or sad or whatever, whether they work in-house or out-of-house, 33% of all workers are making plans.
They're thinking about it.
To leave.
Yeah. Wow.
Isn't that interesting?
That's disturbing.
So that could be much worse than your situation currently. All right. But here's the other thing is that if we just looked at the hard data, you know, put your maybe feelings about it all and your memories of how cool it was to have a great culture and everybody hanging out together, you know, put that aside and just focus on from a performance and a productivity point of view, maybe there are people that actually are performing better at home. You know?
Yeah.
They might be doing, you might be underpaying them relative to the value they're creating for you.
And I've heard that very thing.
It's entirely
in some
possible.
cases, right.
There, for instance, certain jobs, you know, certain job descriptions.
Right.
Like for instance, a strategic planner, somebody whose job it is to do research and try to think about what's happening and what the plan, you know. I'm not sure they need to be sitting around.
You can do that in your pajamas. That's not a
Yeah,
problem.
they can do that in their pajamas. Probably do better in their pajamas.
Probably.
But so that's one thing. The other thing is that even if somebody, most of them want a hybrid arrangement. 67% want, I want to come in 2 days and stay home 3 days. That's what they perceive as the. There are some people that say, I just want to stay here forever.
Right.
And there are, of course, people that just want to get into the office. They feel better. They're mostly extroverts. You know,
Yeah.
they get a lot of joy out of just having friends, people at the office they trust.
Interactions.
Right, interaction. But most of them want some fluid mixture of both. So that really is the question. Assuming that that's, if you followed that model.
Right.
How would we do that, see?
That's tough because that's, you know, depending on the business, again, it can really play havoc with your scheduling different maybe teams
But
where people
couldn't
have
Zoom actually become the common space that everybody, I mean, whether you're sitting in the, I mean, you could be sitting in a cubicle here and he's in a cubicle at the other end of the building and you could be interacting via Zoom anyway.
That's true.
Just possibly, you know.
Yeah.
That wouldn't be ideal. But I'm just saying, you know, there are introverts out there and there are extroverts. And as an employer, you probably want to make, you want to acknowledge those personality differences,
Right.
and make them as comfortable as possible. That's the other thing. I think to negotiate with these people, your mentality is going to have to be, what do you want for you to be as productive as possible for us?
See, and I think the bottom line is, if you're still able, as a company, to make your numbers that you have to have,
Yep.
then maybe you overlook some of these things. But if it's not working,
Yes.
I think you just need to say, look, here's the deal. We have to have you here, and if you can't, you know, then we'll have to figure something else.
But that actually, I mean, if you go down that road, productivity for most companies was up during the pandemic period.
So in a lot of cases, maybe it just works just as well.
Yeah, I mean, I'm implying to you that is certainly a possibility.
Yeah.
The one thing is that innovation tends to be stimulated by social interaction. You know, two, three people.
Yeah.
And a lot of a lot of companies need to be innovative. They don't know how to be innovative.
I mean,
this isn't going to help.
When I think of being on creative teams,
Yeah.
in the publishing world and that kind of thing, you're with the art director, you're with different people, and you're all sitting there and you're throwing out ideas. You can't really do that, I don't think, in this remotely as well. I mean, you can.
You have to almost really do it by yourself and then just come on to Zoom and say, here's what I've been working on.
There's something about that. Boy, synergy is an overused word, but something about that when you're all together.
Yeah, no,
Maybe I'm being old school. I don't know.
No, I think you're on the money. I think that the fluidity and the number one thing you said, one word, flexibility. Right?
Yeah.
That's what they want. They don't want somebody telling them this is the rule.
Right.
If you're in here at 8:05, we're going to take 16 points off. You know, really.
Yeah.
And that's the world of business has been like that
it's
before.
out there, yeah. I know.
Absolutely. So they don't want that at all. And I think all bosses need to realize the pendulum is swinging, and we need to realize that maybe the employees are the company. Maybe that's really the bottom line here. You know, back in 1992 or 3 or something like that, Dan Pink.
I wasn't even born yet.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Dan Pink, the incredible author with Fast Company magazine, he wrote this article about free agent nation. And he said, ultimately, everybody's going to be a free agent. Everybody's going to be an independent worker. And that's how it should be. And then they work for maybe 2, 3, 4 companies, and they coalesce on projects and committees, and then come in and join another one. And business is a permeable wall. You know, that the ideas and the thoughts and the people come through the walls. And so it's not some tight stay away. This is who we are and all that.
Business is not the brick and mortar. It's the actual people who are going to.
And I think Dan Pink would say it's the spirit and the ideas and the creativity that come from that. So I just wonder, he was way before his time, but I just wonder 20 years later if we're not finally embarking on that.
It does take a certain kind of a person to have the initiative to do what he's suggesting.
Exactly right.
Most people don't really
have the discipline.
No. Or they aren't going to really care that much. They don't want to get out there and promote their own skills and things like in that way.
In that way.
Some do.
It might be easier than, today than it was then to
Right.
do that. But no, you're right about that as well. It's a very interesting thing. And,
Yeah.
and I think we'll return to this over time, if you don't mind.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Bruce Aaron, thank you so much. You're such a helpful person and really a catalyst for a higher level of thought as we really address these critical business issues. So thank you so much for that. Listen, before we head into the promotional period here, we've got an exciting new thing to introduce during our promotional period. But I do want to mention and acknowledge in a very honest and authentic way that I think sales and business development is getting tougher and tougher. For two reasons, these two T words I mentioned to you. Time, it seems like the sales cycle is spreading out longer and longer.
Yeah.
And secondly, trust. I'm not sure the buyers trust the sales reps like they used to. Frankly, they can do the research on the web themselves. They don't need the brochures to learn about a product. And they really would rather a rep not knock on their door until they've kindly made a decision and are ready to negotiate terms. Right? And if you're a salesperson, you have a family, you're trying to make a living, it's a real difficult game.
Yeah, I was in sales all through the 80s, and I'm glad that this wasn't happening back then, because it was, and I had tremendous rapport and trust with my customers, but I don't think it'd be the same nowadays.
Yeah. Well, when you get 100 emails a day, every single day, it's very difficult as a potential prospect or buyer to know what to pay attention to and how much information do you need to go further. And they're interesting, and I'll look at them later, but this is very interesting.
Yeah.
Pretty soon you're fragmented. I mean, it's very tough to have an authentic,
distraction.
Sustained dialogue with somebody, and it's a little bit scary. But so time and trust, and I think the thing that, given our short time here that we have to talk about, most sales reps are not comfortable establishing themselves as experts in their industry. They feel they know the product pretty well.
Right.
But these days, clients want to work with somebody who's smarter than they are.
Right.
And can actually offer the idea of, say, you know what, if you purchase this product, you're going to have the opportunity to raise up strategically, maybe lead your industry in a couple different ways, and really have a more kind of inspiring and strategic attitude rather than, this will solve your problem in the next few weeks, saw them right here and we're good.
Right.
Which is how most salespeople are trained.
Yeah.
Transactions.
Make the sale.
Make the sale, close the deal, and move on if they won't go for it.
Right.
And but really the whole thing is that the customers are saying, I already know what your product is and how it would resolve our problem, and I don't know your price, but other than that, I don't really need. 67% of the time, the deal is already done in the customer's head.
Yeah.
Right. So somehow the reps have to be able to say, look, I have a dream for you. I see some inspired movement up towards, and this product can be part of a catalyst for you. You can become known in the industry for this and this. You're not currently known in that way, and blah, 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 blah. And this can really release some of the barriers that you have strategically if you buy our product right here. I see you're the hero here. Right? That's the pitch.
Yeah. I'll buy it.
We all want to be the hero. They say back in the analog days, the product was the hero.
Right.
But in the digital days, the customer and the customer's evolution, not just as a human being, they're the hero. And our product is kind of a crutch or a catalyst to help them go there. But you know what I'm saying?
Exactly.
And you got to be able to talk to people in that way. And that's hard when you got 5 or 10 or 20 prospects.
And you've got to
you have to have a heroic story for all of them.
You've got to really believe what you're saying.
You've got to believe what you're saying and inspire. You don't just do a deal, you got to inspire them.
Right.
Dang. That's hard for me to believe. I love the pitch.
That's earning your commission.
Oh my God. All right, well, Bruce Aaron, thank you so much for weighing in on these controversial topics. You think about that a little bit, and I'm going to introduce to our audience here on WowBiz Nebraska a new business magazine, right, that exists to serve the business community throughout the entire state of Nebraska.
It's an online magazine?
It's a digital magazine. Okay. Yeah, it's not going to be printed and distributed that way. It'll be a digital magazine. And so I'm going to show the audience right now what the cover of the first month's magazine looks like. And as you might be able to see right now, the cover and the name of the magazine is New Momentum.
Yes.
Kind of a cool name.
I like that.
I like that. I mean, why in the world would you make a change and start reading even more with some, unless it gives you a sense of momentum and it's got new, fresh ideas.
Yeah, you want an old momentum.
No, that'd be bad. Now, what people may not realize, certainly you do, is that this magazine will be sconced or embedded, showcased inside of Newbraska.com. This is an offshoot of, or a part of the Newbraska.com, but you don't have to be a member of Newbraska.com to read New Momentum. Right. And also, in contrary to most magazines, it won't have just text-written articles, right? It'll also have videos, and it'll have audio podcasts.
Wow.
So
a lot of content.
Multimedia, a lot of content, and every single course, as we all know, every single member of the ecosystem known as Newbraska will have these things provided every single month. Could be videos, articles, podcast interviews, whatever. But they're going to have a lot of great media about them and their company, and it's all going to be woven into trend articles that are, again, embedded inside of New Momentum magazine.
So it's real content.
Real
marketing.
Content about Nebraska companies and the trends that are shaping their destiny. Huh. And so we're very excited about New Momentum magazine. We hope everybody wants to read, look, listen to the magazine. Can you imagine listen to a magazine? You know,
I
it
know.
sounds kind of weird, doesn't it?
It sounds like, yeah. It doesn't.
Yeah, so anyway, New Momentum magazine, we're proud of it, and we hope that you'll look it up and refer to New Momentum magazine as you do your social media postings, and you'll enjoy it, and maybe you'll even get involved with Newbraska down the road.
Well, the fact that something is that rich of a meal, so to speak,
Yeah.
That's unusual these days because there's a lot of fluff out there.
Yeah, that's exactly right. But you know, there's an underscoring point that you're making here, which is business can be approached a lot of different ways.
Yeah.
You know, and when I used to do interviews for the University of Nebraska in Lincoln, and then we put 4 interviews a week up on iTunes. It was called iTunes University. Okay. And there were 700-800 colleges that were in this section of iTunes. Huh. And of course, as you would imagine, Harvard was the most listened to, and then MIT and Wharton, Stanford, and so on. They were the top, you know,
right,
that everybody would go and listen to whatever the business content was. And inside of 2 months, I was working with the University of Nebraska in Lincoln now. I be in Lincoln, Nebraska every week, interviewing entrepreneurs around the state of Nebraska. They'd drive into Lincoln, and we'd go to NETV and shoot, you know.
Right.
And then we would have 4 interviews uploaded every single week.
Wow.
Okay. So after 2 months, what's that, like 8 times 4? About 35 interviews were up. Google was going crazy and lifting up UNL, lifting up these interviews because they had titles and keywords. Sure. And I got this phone call one day, and they said, come down to Lincoln. We want to chat with you. And, you know, there was nothing out of the ordinary. All of a sudden, I'm like, oh, maybe they're going to fire me. I don't know, you know. And I got to Lincoln, and the whole production crew was there. The client support staff. There was an ad agency that had created the logo for the show. They were there. It was very weird. And they're all standing there kind of like, it would have been 20 people in the room.
Wow.
And they said, Lynn, we want to tell you. And I'm like, what's up, everybody, you know? And they said, well, here's the thing. After only 2 months, the University of Nebraska in Lincoln's interviews that you are spearheading have now become #1 in all of iTunes University, knocking down Harvard, MIT, Wharton Business School, Stanford. None of them could compete with the cumulative uploading of these interviews from Lincoln, Nebraska.
Wow.
Yeah. And I had no idea, you know, I mean, I didn't know what to say, and thank you, and it's great, and I'm enjoying it, and, you know, let's sign up for another consulting gig, right? But, yeah, so that was very interesting. But the point of it, I think strategically for our audience is this, is that if you can be an expert and be perceived as an expert, or frankly, be platforming an expert, or you know, assisting in somebody becoming known as an expert. Right. Just in that whole thought leadership vein, today's customer will go, hey, you know, these guys are good. You know, they know what they're talking about.
They gravitate towards that.
They gravitate towards people. It's respect. And but my job was, as you might guess, was to try to keep it not dry. And I think some of the Harvard stuff was a little dry.
Yeah.
Smart, very smart, but maybe a little boring.
You didn't have a tweed jacket with a pipe?
No, let me pontificate on that. No, it wasn't like that at all. And I think that really was the key, frankly. Yeah. A lot of the MBAs and people like that were gravitating to something a little more
academic,
edutainment, infotainment.
Yeah.
You know how that goes. Anyway, so anyway, I want to thank you for that. Hey, look, I'll keep you up to date on how New Momentum is doing.
Yeah, this looks really interesting.
Should be very good. And our lead-in story is how to benefit from joining an online ecosystem. And let me just say, Bruce, the next time we visit, in a couple of weeks here, we're going to dive deep into what is an ecosystem, a business ecosystem. Why would you want to do that? And it's a brand new business model.
Why is it called that?
Why is it called that?
Right.
And 4 out of 5 of the global brands, 4 out of 5 of the largest brands in the world are growing double digit because of their involvement in ecosystems. Isn't that interesting? And so here we are in the state of Nebraska, and we're going to kind of steal that concept,
right?
That what they call a platform is another way to think about it,
sure.
And bring it into the entire state of Nebraska, and let some of the leaders and the more proactive business owners in our state jump on board, and they can enjoy double-digit growth as well. We'll talk about how that works.
Interesting to talk about.
Very interesting. All right. So, speaking of thought leadership,
okay.
This is a time, seriously, right now, there is so much confusion. Businesses flopping around and trying to figure out, do we spend money on marketing advertising? Do we hire another salesperson? Do we get rid of everybody and just sit and wait this thing out and see what happens?
Yeah.
Because they are talking about the economy kind of exploding, doing extremely well. So some people, I can tell you, are thinking, we'll just hang out, kind of do nothing, serve our existing clients,
right.
Whatever comes our way, and we'll just kind of go up and increase in our overall sales.
Just tag along for the ride.
Right, and let the water lift us up.
Yeah.
Lazy, and a terrible mistake, because once things kind of really normalize in the economy, they'll be left behind, and they won't be prepared to grind it out in some innovative way. But anyway, so we've got a document here, and I want to tell all my clients, all my existing clientele, as well as viewers of the show, that we have this. This is a 25-page document. It's steeped in wisdom and knowledge that I've grabbed and distilled over the last 20 years. Yeah. It's right here. It's called Jumpstart, and it could be helpful, so simply ask us, and we'll send it to you, and be happy to do that. So here are some of the things. Let's say somebody's sitting around saying, guys, we need to kind of pick it up and do something a little different and get going. Have we got any good ideas? All right. So I'm sitting right here. You're laughing. Don't you think people do that?
No, I've been in that meeting several times.
You've been in that meeting before. Okay. They're kind of informal typically and a little cynical.
Yeah.
But so here's the first one. I want you to give it either an A, a B, a C, a D, or an F insofar as its potential effectiveness. Okay. Number 1, solve all the hassles and inefficiencies that surround your product. Solve all the hassles and inefficiencies involved that surround your product.
As far as a goal for the company, so you want me to rate that and give it a grade?
In terms of buying your product. Okay. In other words, it's inconvenient to buy. It's a little inefficient.
Man, I think that gets a high rating.
It's a high rating. It'd be an A, huh?
Yeah.
Maybe an A plus.
You got to make it easy to buy your product.
Okay, here's another one. I like that. Steal ideas from leaders in your industry and even companies outside your industry. All right. Cast a broad net for new concepts and adapt them to your business.
Well, the first part I would give it a F. I don't think you don't need to be stealing anything. You need to be thinking and innovating yourself.
Well, maybe inspire ideas.
But I do agree with casting a broad net.
Casting a broad net.
Yeah,
absolutely.
That should get a pretty high rating.
We talked a little bit before about your tremendous books that you have about sleeping and the sheep and all that stuff.
Yeah.
And casting a broad net, just to use an example.
Yeah.
Would be going to companies that manufacture quilts and blankets for children and beds and bedspreads, and possibly licensing your content to them.
Been there.
And getting them to collaborate with you.
Yeah.
That would be a broad net.
Yeah.
So anyway, as we wrap up here, a couple more of these. I'd love to get your thoughts about this. Now here, let people know let people hear what we're working on, what we want to leverage, what management thinks about what we're heading. Walk around, talk to employees, give them concrete metrics for where we want to go, and help them focus and strive. So that's kind of an internal thing, kind of a culture thing. Really talk up what we're trying to get done, give them concrete, we got to get to 13% waste, or whatever it is.
I would give that I'd give it a B. I wouldn't give it an A necessarily, but I think you need to get people involved so they want to buy into it, or they want to get on board and excited.
And they have to be aware before they're going to get excited.
Right. So you have to kind of get a team attitude.
Be present with it.
Right.
Absolutely. We'll do one more, and then I'll have to sign off for today right here on WowBiz Nebraska. I'm Lynn Hinderock right here with Bruce Arent. He's giving us his insightful wisdom. Help find younger buyers and make sure that you have conduct or a behavior inside your company that aligns with corporate culture. By the way, what this has to do with is a manager was hired to run Harley Davidson, and he drove to work one day in a little Vespa, like a little European scooter.
Yeah.
And the board of directors fired him directly.
I was just going to ask how that went.
Yeah, that didn't go well at all.
No.
And but now, 10 years later, after this, Harley Davidson is getting big into scooters.
Well,
for the urban market.
It's a different day now.
Yeah, it's interesting.
That's fascinating. I love that story, though.
It's a good story. All right, well, there'll be lots of good stories when you come here next time. WowBiz Nebraska. I had to link that in right there, Bruce Arent. It's been a pleasure visiting with you, and hopefully some of this information today about time and trust, and obviously hybrid workers, and the introduction of New Momentum magazine will motivate you to move the company forward at this pivotal time in history and in the business sector here in Nebraska. Make sure you don't miss us the next time right here in WowBiz Nebraska. We'll see you soon. Thanks a lot for watching.